The chief interpretation around Joel Schumacher's 1993 classic Falling Down is that it's about a man who's becoming obsolete in a changing America. But the film is really about how two different men, one being our lead, Bill D-Fens Foster, played by Michael Douglas, and Prendergast, played by Robert Duvall, and it's really about how one melts down after getting the shaft in pretty much every direction imaginable, and the other one finds a way to persevere through intimidation and quite literally a work environment that no longer respects him. There's been several interpretations about this film, but this is what Falling Down is really about. So let's take a look at Falling Down, as this, of course, is the first video of the new year, and how these men handle their situation and even the worlds of these two men. Now, before we dive in, if you guys can, please consider hitting that like button. Please, if you guys can do that, please do so that way the video will get out to a much, much larger audience. Also, please leave a comment because I'm going to want to hear what you guys got to say. I'm going to want to know what you guys think about the video essay and also about the characters in this film or the film itself. And also, if you guys can, after watching the video, please consider subscribing. Let's make this platform bigger, and let's go ahead and get started. I don't think a full-blown plot summary is needed. Chances are, if you clicked on this video, you've already seen the film, or you may be inspired to go watch it again. But still, though, if you haven't seen the film, just know that there's going to be spoilers in this video, and I advise you guys, please go check it out. Our story focuses around Bill Foster. He's unemployed, he's divorced, he's basically living in a country that in some ways he views as passing him by. There is the line that I did not lose my country lost me. And of course the heat of an LA traffic jam and a car that's breaking down on him constantly, or at least you get that impression, is sort of the last straw for Bill, and he abruptly leaves his car. And I'll just say this right here. When a random stranger behind him asks him what he's doing, his response is,
"Hey, where do you think you're going?" "Going home."
"I'm going home." Now, like I said, it's not a full-blown plot summary, but basically Bill is a man who is, for the most part, had enough, and things are slowly but surely building up in him. Mostly those things being the fact that, as mentioned before, he's divorced, and we'll get more into that a little bit later on, and he's lost his job. And then he basically goes through the city and looks at pretty much all the negative aspects of the area that he lives in. Now, there is going to be a much, much more thorough character analysis video on Bill himself and the issues that he is dealing with in much, much more detail that will be coming out shortly after this video here. But the purpose of this video right here is to show you what the real point of the film was, which was to, for the most part, show you how it is that one man melts down and compare it to a man that, for the most part, perseveres. And speaking of that perseverance, let's go ahead and talk very, very quickly about Prendagast, played by Robert Duvall. Prendagast is a man who is really, when you see him in the story, he's at his last day of work. He's retiring from his job. He's been working a desk for a while. And his fellow officers don't exactly have any respect for him. There's even the sequence with the captain that will be coming up a little bit later on, where the captain basically gives him his true thoughts about him. But more on that a little bit later. Let's get back to Bill. Bill looks like a man who is literally out of time, out of place with the environment that he's in. The plain white button-up t-shirt, the tie, the very, very thick glasses, the flat-top haircut. He looks like a man that came from the 1950s to the 1960s, living in what would be the early 1990s LA, shortly after the LA riots. As a matter of fact, the film itself was filmed during said LA riots. So there's sort of a bit of a hint of that in the film. By the way, the screenwriter of the film, I'll link it in the description box, he basically said that Bill is kind of a representation of the old guard, which you kind of get the impression over the course of the film that, for the most part, this is a world that is straight up passing him by. Part of the reason why it is that people look at this film and they think that the real theme is the death of the American dream, but in reality, it's really more the backdrop to the real theme of what's actually going on, which is, as mentioned before, how two men handle their problems. One man chooses to adapt and overcome. The other man, the man that we spend the most amount of time with, he chooses to essentially melt down. So before we fully dig into this, I want you to know that this video is going to go like this. We're going to talk about Bill first. Then we're going to flip it back over to talk about Prendergast momentarily, and then we're going to come back and close the video out by talking about, once again, the overall themes of the film and where this shows up the most. Now with that there out of the way, let's go ahead and get to part one. So getting back to Bill, like I said before, out of work, recently let go from his job. We'll talk more about the circumstances behind that a little bit later. You kind of get the impression that maybe he was laid off, but there's also another impression that he might have actually gotten himself released. He's divorced. You find out that from the wife when she is talking to the police officer, because Bill has been trying to get up with her throughout the entire film, calling her up from payphones. You find this little nugget.
Tremendous temper, and I just didn't know if a restraining order was a good idea. I mean, it would do more harm than good. But the judge said we should make an example of him. So he can't come within 100 feet of us.
Yeah, leave it to judges to make a decision on somebody without actually knowing the full specifics. Yes, I know that there's an abuse component here. Don't worry, that will come up a little bit later on. But still, though, at the same time, judges oftentimes think they might know a little bit more about the situation than the people who actually live there. The wife is basically saying, look, it was probably not a good idea to do this. It could set him off further, but the judge wants to make an example out of him. By the way, that right there is going to be the theme of another film coming up a little bit later on down the road on this channel. You've already seen some B-roll footage of it, but don't worry, that particular video essay will come out this year. Still, though, the point is this here. Bill is a man who's frustrated. He's watching the degradation of society. He's watching the world, for the most part, pretty much passing by. There's also that scene with the guy outside the bank who's protesting because he just got denied a loan. And the term that you get is economically non-viable. I'm going to play both of these scenes back to back so that way you guys can kind of see it for yourself, and then also at the exact same time hear it in Bill's voice.
You know what they told me? I was not economically viable. No.
Come on, that's enough.
I'll bite this.
Yes, sir.
Bye, everybody! Don't forget me.
Well, actually, I didn't lose it. It lost me. I'm overeducated, underskilled. Maybe it's the other way around, I forget. But I'm obsolete. I'm not economically viable. I can't even support my own kid. Oh, jeez, are you hurt? Oh, honey, I'm...
You feel for Bill, and this is obviously something that bothers him, and you find out a little bit later on that he actually worked in the defense industry. And also, there's also that bit inside the convenience store where he basically tells the guy, look, we've helped your native country out, Korea, a lot. And I can already hear somebody saying, look, this right here shows you that he's racist or whatnot. I don't feel that that's the case at all, and I'll even further expand on that in the second video. The point is this here. Bill is a man that is frustrated. And speaking of those frustrations, let's play a little montage of some of the things that Bill has done that eventually lead to our climax in the film. Just a quick little montage.
Oh, too much. Aspirin. Price?
$3.40.
Oh, please. Here, you want my briefcase? Here's my briefcase! Briefcase, huh? Wait a minute, wait! Here! Hey, where you going, huh? Where you going? You forgot the briefcase! You forgot the briefcase! I'm going home! See, this is what I'm talking about. Turn around, look at that. You see what I mean? It's plump, it's juicy, it's 3 inches thick. Now, look at this sorry, miserable squash thing.
People want to use the phone.
That's right, you selfish asshole.
Jeez, that's too bad, because you know what?
What?
I think it's out of order. Nothing happened.
Must have been a dud or something like that.
I mean, where to start? And by the way, that little montage does not cover it all. I mean, the fast food sequence itself is probably the most key sequence in the entire film. But still, though, at the exact same time, when you know the context around each scene, it's easy to come away thinking to yourself, daggone, Bill is kind of a hero to us all in a way, because we've all been fooled by deceptive business practices, especially when it comes to fast food, or we've always felt that drinks were a little bit priced, let's just say priced a little bit too high. Or you've always had that person behind you that's an absolute jerk, even though we don't use telephone booths like we used to. But still, though, it's how you respond to each and every single incident, or at least how Bill responds to this. It makes Bill look like a bit of a villain. Something else, too, that needs to be said, that there are some of these where Bill is really, in a lot of ways, correct in. For example, when he's out there just looking at the want ads and he's trying to recover the hole in his shoe, well, he's trying to fix it anyways. I don't know why I said recover, but still, though, he's trying to fix the issue. He gets approached by two gang members who try to threaten and intimidate him. It makes you think that they might kill Bill, but Bill ultimately fights them off. He fights them off with the bat that he took from the convenience store, which I do think he might have gone a little bit too far in that sequence. But still, though, once again, you understand his frustrations. By the way, these gang members would eventually pull a drive-by a little bit later on in the film, and they would not only almost kill Bill, but they would almost kill just about everybody in the entire area. So you can't blame Bill for being the way he was, especially when it comes to the gang members. I mean, dude, they were going to kill him earlier, so obviously you need to be able to defend yourself. Like I said, some of these are acts where you think to yourself, well, I guess he's in the right end. But once again, though, the fast food joint, eventually him blowing up the construction site. There's also a little bit at the golf course. There's also the bit at the plastic surgeon's home with the caretakers where Bill, well, doesn't realize he's holding them hostage, where Bill is apparently going a little bit too far. I played a little bit of that scene earlier where he was talking about how it was that he didn't lose his country lost him, and he can't even afford to take care of his daughter. Like I said before, you feel for Bill. You know he's going through a divorce. You know that a restraining order was placed on him, and that the wife herself said that, it might be a little bit too far. More on that in the character analysis video of Bill. We're going to go much more in detail on that, but the point is this here. These are all understandable things for Bill to be upset about. The problem is how he responded. I mean, it almost makes you wonder why it is the film is called Falling Down and not titled Melting Down, because it feels more like an absolute meltdown than anything else. But then again, at the same time, like mentioned before, all of these frustrations that Bill is going through, whether self-inflicted or not, they're understandable. Like I said, overcharging drinks, especially on a hot day when you're just putting your head inside the freezer just to cool off for a little bit. The fact that you got a crappy burger, you show up a few minutes beyond breakfast and you're asking, hey, look, man, why the hell can't I get an Egg McMuffin here? I mean, what the hell is going on? I only missed about 3 minutes. And of course, to go on top of that, the product that he gets just looks like pure crap. There's also the other bit involving the surplus store owner, which I'll talk more about in video number 2, but even that right there is frustrating because Bill was once again in the right for defending himself, and he can't go to law enforcement because of all the things that happened earlier that day. Even the gangland stuff he can't go to law enforcement about because of earlier incidents. He's kind of a person of interest at this moment in time. He's kind of being looked at, and you can't help but feel for his situation. But at the same time, though, it's like I said before, the purpose of the film. It's how one responds to what's going on around them, and that right there is kind of what defines the character. Which is where we get to Prendagast. Prendagast won't take as long to explain, but let me go through it really quick. So, like I said before, the film was designed to contrast how two men react to the cards that they are dealt, and in Prendagast's case, it's more of a case of some form of emasculation. First of all, when we meet him, we see that he's actually retiring from the force. You get the impression he's been there for over 20 years, maybe even 30. His co-workers don't seem to respect him. He has a wife that is clearly unstable, quite frankly overbearing, a lot like what was hinted at about Bill, of course that there being his mother, not his ex-wife, but still, though, at the same time, you guys kind of picked up on that there. He also has a captain who absolutely despises him. He even lets him know this to his face.
I've never liked you. You want to know why? You don't curse. I don't trust a man who doesn't curse. Not a fuck or a shit in all these years. Real men curse, Prendergast. And I especially don't like a man in my command who's afraid to hit the street. It's bad for morale.
I'm not afraid to hit anything, okay?
Get back behind that desk where you belong. And don't waste any more of my time pretending you're a cop.
And it's not just the captain. There's also this scene where, and I know I'm kind of glossing over a lot here for the sake of time, but there's also this other scene where Prendergast is kind of looking into who's causing all those disturbances in town. And one of the gang members, or one of the chicas from the gang members, is being interrogated. And Bill's looking at this and saying to himself, look, there might be a connection between the two. And of course, he, for the most part, is just kind of pushed out of the room like he's absolutely nothing.
Prendergast, come over here, will you? Look, we gotta keep the pressure on her. Don't interrupt, okay?
What about the baseball bat thing? The white shirt and the tie.
What will she think of next? You know, I'm sorry you're leaving, but you are.
Sanchez.
Hey, check me out.
Listen to me.
Check me later, babe.
He's a nice guy, honestly affable, but he kind of gets made fun of because of his wife and the fact that he is behind a desk. By the way, speaking of the wife, we'll get to her momentarily. But I want to say this really quick. Before you get to the climax of the film where Prendergast actually explains what it was that happened to his daughter, you kind of get the impression, if you kind of sit back and think on it, you get the impression that he may have actually been a tough guy at one point in time where he had been an actual beat cop. I mean, most police officers don't spend 30 years behind a desk. It just seems that the new generation of police officers that came in after Prendergast only know him as a desk jockey instead of some previous cop who may have actually had some pretty important bust at one point in time. Just saying. Still, what does Prendergast do? He kind of navigates his way through the intimidation. He kind of navigates his way through the disrespect. He perseveres. He finds a way through it all, and he eventually catches up to Bill, which we'll get to the preceding moments before the climax, but there's one more thing that needs to be said. You find out that Prendergast had a daughter at one point in time, and her death may have been what it was that sent his wife over the edge. Remember, Bill is heavily hinted at has an overbearing mother, where it is that Prendergast, it seems like he has an extremely overbearing wife. But let me play this for you.
You know, my wife never was cut out for motherhood. She did it all for me, see? Went through all that pain, lost her figure, all for me. Then the kid went to sleep one night, never woke up. They called it infant death syndrome. But she wasn't an infant. It was very strange because she was 2 years old. She was a big girl.
Now, I don't think I need to explain all of that. If you've lost a child, if you've lost a job, you understand exactly where we're going with this, especially if you've lost a child. The pain of losing a child is way more painful than losing a job. Yes, we understand that Bill is going through a lot of underlying issues. If you ask me which person here has the most amount of pain or has dealt with the most amount of pain, it's definitely Prendergast, which always brings me back to this scene that I'm about to play for you guys, where he doesn't exactly tell Bill to suck it up, but he more or less tells him, look, you're not any different than any other average Joe out there.
I did everything they told me to. Did you know I build missiles?
Yeah.
I helped to protect America? You should be rewarded for that. Instead, they give it to the plastic surgeon. You know, they lied to me.
Is that what this is about? You're angry because you got lied to? Is that why my chicken dinner's drying out in the oven? Hey, they lie to everybody. They lie to the fish. But that doesn't give you any special right to do what you did today. The only thing that makes you special is that little girl. Now let's go.
Prendergast has kind of accepted the situation for what it is. He knows that there is bad in the world. He knows that there are times where you're going to get screwed over. Bill, on the other hand, is not seemingly used to what's actually happening in the world, what's going on around him. And I understand that change is very, very much a part of this film's overall theme. However, it's really how one reacts to said change. That right there is what this film is about. And there's also another little plot that I kind of didn't really want to bring up until now. And that right there, of course, would be the plot with the ex-wife, a little bit more in detail about Bill's temper and all that type of stuff there. So, as you already know, there's a restraining order placed on Bill. Bill's wife had told a police officer earlier that, look, you know, We didn't feel that this was necessary, but the judge wanted to make an example out of him. Now, at first, you think to yourself, this right here might be a little bit harsh, but then when Bill goes home, when he finally gets home and he watches the home movies, you get this little nugget here.
Time to go, horsey. Oh, it's okay, horsey. It's okay, honey. Giddy up. Giddy up, giddy up. Okay. Beth, please, Beth, just please. Horsey, Beth, damn it, just take her and put her on the horse. There we go. Horsey ride. Giddy up. Giddy up. Put her on the horse.
She's not supposed to. I mean, you can't force her like that.
I bought her the goddamn horse. There we go. Horsey ride.
Yeah, the temper. There's even this little bit at the very end of the final scene of the film where you just kind of look at this and you kind of get the impression that maybe the home life really and truly was nowhere near as good as Bill thought that it was. Like I said, more about that in the character analysis. This video right here is more about how the two handle their situation, but still, though, the point is this here. While he's watching these home movies, you kind of think to yourself that Bill knows that his anger, he knows that he sort of was the architect of his own destruction. Even at the very end, when Prendergast is trying to convince him to put the weapons down and come on in, Bill can't help himself but try to goad Prendergast into, well, let's play for you.
You want to draw?
Let's not. Let's call it a day.
Oh, come on. It's perfect. Showdown between the sheriff and the bad guy. It's beautiful. On 3.
That's how far gone Bill was. He actually thought that the cops were not going to shoot him. Or maybe it's possible this is how Bill wanted to go out. A toy water gun in his hand, and he figured this right here was probably the way for him to be ended. It kind of gives new meaning to the word falling down, or the title falling down of this film, even though I tend to think that it probably should have been called Melting Down, but still, you guys can obviously see the symbolism here. However, as for Prendagast, he comes out of this entire situation looking like a bit of a hero. The final scene of the film is Prendergast's captain congratulating him, telling the media that he's got great officers. And of course, Prendergast, and you guys have already seen it, his captain doesn't exactly like him, so Prendergast lets him know exactly how he feels about the captain.
Denigrate the Venice Police Department, but it was one of our fellas that put this thing together. Prendergast. This is Sergeant Prendergast. Damn fine work, Prendergast.
Fuck you, Captain Yardley. Fuck you very much.
And then, of course, there was also this other scene where Prendergast's most annoying co-worker wants to point out the fact that his wife is insane. And, of course, I'm just playing it for you guys. We're in the B-roll footage. He perseveres where Bill melts down. And I think that that was the point of the entire film, was how these two men handle their issues and handle their problems. Handle what's actually in front of them, like what they're dealing with. But these right here, of course, are just my thoughts. You guys tell me in the comment section what you guys think about the video, what you guys think about the film and the characters. There will be a second video out on this film that will be looking at the character of Bill D-Fens Foster more in detail. This video right here was about the overall theme, about how it is that these two men differ and how they handle what's going on around them. Still, though, if you guys can, please hit the like button on the way out. If you guys can, also please consider subscribing. Please leave a comment. I'd love to get you guys' thoughts on this, and I'll see you guys later.